Welcome back to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. We've got Nick Farabaugh on today talking about the best solutions for the Steelers at slot cornerback and free safety, and more of your questions answered here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode of the Locked On Steelers podcast is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. More on them later. Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things in the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day, because we're your team every day. As I said before, joined by the man himself, Nick Farabaugh, back on the show. Nick, always great to have you on, sir. We're getting closer and closer to training camp, and different camp battles are going to emerge, but I do think there's also just natural holes in the roster, at least the starting lineup, that we don't know for sure now, and the secondary has at least two at slot and free safety.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think the slot solution is on the roster. I think it's Jalen Ramsey. That's my feel. I like Jalen Ramsey there. I think you can play him outside and base, and when you go into nickel, put him right inside, and I think you got a slot corner that can play a lot of different roles. He can blitz. He can man up on tight ends. He can be your dime backer if you really want him to. So if you want him working Beanie Bishop, go for it. I think there's options to do that. So I think there's options there with Jalen Ramsey, but I think he's going to be your main option there. Free safety, I guess you could go with Juan Thornhill, but Chris, he's missed 6 games each of the last 2 years with soft tissue injuries, calf injuries. He had a shoulder issue last year. He's been banged up throughout his career. I need some more security here with the free safety. And I think I would go for Julian Blackmon. That's who I would look to kind of go and sign. He's a solid player. He had a shoulder issue last year too and had surgery on it. So something to consider there. As long as that's kind of checked out, I think he'd be a really good option. But he's a good tackler. He's rangy on the back end, smart player. The Steelers liked him coming out of free agency last year. So I think you have your slot corner on the roster, but I actually think the free safety, I think, you could look really towards Julian Blackmon, and I think he's the best option probably on the market.
Well, to get more on that question, we had one of our callers calling. This was Powell calling from Buffalo, New York, asking very much along these lines.
Hey, Chris. This is Powell from Buffalo, New York. I love the show. Just had a question about Jalen Ramsey. I know that right now everybody's, thinking he's probably going to be playing the slot because that's our biggest need is a slot corner. But there's a lot of talk about him eventually moving to safety. My question is, with Deshaun Elliott already on the team as kind of the box safety and just getting, renewed up for the next 3 years, where would Jalen Ramsey really fit as a safety? I think he's more of a fit as that box safety that Deshaun Elliott already is. I don't think he has, per se, the top-end speed that we really need in a free safety that's going to roam deep. I'm just curious on how you think that fit's gonna work. Hope you have a great day. Congratulations on the wedding coming up, and again, love the show. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, pal. As always, we appreciate everyone who calls into the show at 412-223-6644. Leave your name, where you're from, keep your question under a minute. Nick, I have been of the stance that if the Steelers move Jalen Ramsey to free safety, they better be very certain that is a good move. I think Alan Saunders is a little bit more open to the idea than I was, but to me, I'm like, you got Jalen Ramsey because you want him to help at the cornerback position, including, like you said, the slot. Last year, he lined up left and right cornerbacks almost exactly equal. They were off by like 2 snaps, but he lined up a decent amount in the slot as well, so he has that versatility. I know he's played free safety like at Florida State and everything like that, but if you wanted a free safety, why wouldn't you just keep Minkah Fitzpatrick in the first place? I think that Jalen Ramsey's your corner. He's going to be flexing into the slot when they want him to. But I'm with you. I think the free safety answer is somewhere off the roster right now, whether it be Julian Blackmon or Justin Simmons or name another guy who they could maybe trade for.
I don't even understand why moving Jalen Ramsey to safety this year is a discussion. I don't think that was the plan. I don't think when every time I bring up safety about Jalen Ramsey, it's in two contexts. It's one in like the 3 safety nickel where he essentially takes where Minka was, right? Where he's just kind of roaming around the middle of the field, can take away tight ends, can do some things there. The other kind of context is when he's like 33, like when the speed's gone and you don't trust him in man-to-man anymore. You know, Rod Woodson, it took Rod Woodson 12 years until he switched over. How long did it take Charles Woodson? Like 14? Like it took those guys a long time. So we're talking about guys that switched over. I mean, even Pat Pete, I think, had 12 seasons at corner before he switched over. Ramsey's got more gas in the tank at outside corner. You are not paying Jalen Ramsey the money the Steelers are paying him to not be an outside or a slot or both corner. And I think that's what he's going to be. He's going to be an outside that can come inside and probably I think is going to play most of his snaps probably in the slot this year. I think they're going to play a ton out of nickel and try and use that as flexibility to do what they can on the back end. But I don't think Ramsey at all is even factoring into the safety kind of discussion this year in terms of an actual true safety. Like if they are in base defense, I do not think we are ever going to see Jalen Ramsey line up at safety. If we are in dime or nickel, can he play pseudo safety roles like the Cam Sutton linebacker role where he flies back and plays some safety there? Could he do that? Sure. But I don't think he's going to be a traditional safety in any sense of the word. And so the free safety discussion, I think, is off the roster. It's either Juan Thornhill, who I don't think is the answer there. I think he's the safety 3 from there. Or it's, the Julian Blackmon, Marcus Williams, Justin Simmons, someone in that vein.
No, I'm right with you there. And listen, I'm a person who thought Juan Thornhill was a heck of a get, but he was a heck of a get for the third safety option, like being the guy that would come off the bench there. And to your point too, because that was the one thing I was willing to say, like for Ramsey, he could be a sort of de facto safety where it's just like, oh, it just how happened, or just the Georgia safety. Look at me using Latin, but he could be the guy that rotates back there for deep coverage and just for a play does that. But I don't think you want him traditionally lining up 15, 20 yards off the ball. Again, I thought the biggest change in going to get a Jalen Ramsey was you were basically swapping him and Minka for a guy who can be a high-level player 20 yards off the ball for a guy who could be a high-level player 3 or 4 yards off the ball. And that being helping you, one, cover the short passes, help against the run a little bit more, and also force quarterbacks to hold on to the ball a little bit longer so that TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Derek Harmon, Cam Hayward, you name them, are getting more time to get after the quarterback. And if you're moving Jalen Ramsey back there, it just comes off as, why did you do this in the first place when that's who you had in Minka Fitzpatrick, who, by the way, is younger than Jalen Ramsey?
Yeah, why would you get older at free safety? It doesn't make much sense, right? I think, listen, Jalen Ramsey's contract runs through, I think, 2028. Not necessarily that he's going to see all those years, but I think we're at least 2 years away from talking about a full-time move to safety for Ramsey. Like, he's still a great athlete. Like, why do you want to move him to safety? I mean, look at the tape. Is he what he was in Jacksonville? No, but he was such a great athlete coming out, even though he's maybe lost a step. He's still a very good athlete. Like, he's better than most corners athletically still. He can still run with guys down the field. There was no question about that last year when I watched his tape. He's a guy that looks fine athletically. And so I want him to play corner. I want him to play slot corner. It's harder to find outside and slot corners than it is free safeties. It just is. And so I'd rather not put Jalen Ramsey in that role. And, when it comes to Juan Thornhill, Chris, I mean, there is the chance that he regains his Kansas City form, right? That's always a chance. He was so good in Kansas City, got that big deal from Cleveland, and just hasn't been the same guy the past 2 years. Injuries have been a part of that. So there is that possibility. So there is upside, but there's too many questions with that to me to just bank on that with nothing. And if he got hurt, who's even the backup free safety? Like, who is it? Like, I don't know. Is it Deshaun Jameson? Like, honestly. Like, that's who I think it is. Like, I don't know. Is it Quindell Johnson? Like all these lower roster guys, like, there is not a natural backup free safety right now that's going to be projected to make the 53-man roster right now. So they need another one regardless.
Nick, a lot of people are saying that you're disrespecting right now, that you dare slander the name by not bringing him up, Sebastian Castro. Oh my gosh. He's a box safety. Thank you. Exactly. And he's a box safety. I'm not sure he's going to make the team just yet. I think he had a lot of upside at Iowa. I think he could be a play, but he is not a free safety. Do not put him in that conversation. If anything, he is your backup to the backup of Deshaun Elliott and helping in that realm and being more of that dime backer role that plays close to the line of scrimmage and helps against the run. But again, that is way, 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 way far off the depth chart. Free safety. Bottom line is, I think the Steelers need to go for it. You think the Steelers need to go for it. Jalen Ramsey, pencil him in as your slot on occasion as they move guys around, because I do think you're going to see these cornerback alignments switch up a lot as the season goes along. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk to Nick about some stratagems on how to free up TJ Watt. He was the most chipped player in the NFL according to Pro Football Focus last year. We'll talk about how they can do better against that this year. That's next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Stick with us. We'll be right back. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. We've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. Tired of endless scrolling trying to find the best deal? Game Time's zone deals pick the best seats in your section for you. Ever wonder what your view will actually look like before you buy? The app on Game Time shows you a panoramic seat view, so there are no surprises. Worried about what happens if plans change? Game Time's guarantee always has your back with cancellation protection and more. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We're back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, here with Nick Farabaugh of PennLive.com. Nick, we're going to take another question here. This one coming from Larry in Westerfield, New Jersey, about TJ Watt. And that question I brought up, freeing him up from the chip blocks. Here's Larry.
Hello, Counselor Carter, Esquire. My name is Larry. I'm calling from New Jersey. And my question is, if TJ is getting chipped by a tight end on tight end's way out, is this legal, or is this possible where maybe TJ can just tie up the tight end, keep the tight end out of the play, and then that would free up another player on the defense to blitz in and go after the quarterback? So then they kind of give up TJ's rush on the quarterback, but he's taking up two players, and that leaves someone free. Would that work? Does that make any sense? Is it legal? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Larry, for your question. As always, 412-223-6644. Leave your name, where you're from. Keep your question under a minute. It would not be legal for TJ Watt to hold two players, but if teams wanted to dedicate two players to him all the time, that's what they already do. I think the big thing here, Nick, is the Steelers need to make it harder for teams' plans to just run as smoothly as far as, oh, TJ Watt's lining up in this spot on any given play. We're going to practice it so that our entire offensive front and our plans and how we pick our formations, how we develop our plays are around getting one tight end and a tackle or a running back or all three to all collapse on TJ Watt to make sure he's not a factor. If you're going to do that, you're going to have to guess a little bit more where he lines up and also where more pressure might be coming from, because it's okay to use TJ Watt as a decoy because they have in the past. But I do think that the point is you still want to get him his one-on-ones, because when he gets his one-on-ones, he is still a deadly pass rusher.
I thought that's what Keith Butler did so well at.
Yep.
See, he was able to get his guys one-on-ones, and TJ was a huge benefactor of that. But when you line him up off the right tackle at wide 9 every play, I mean, you are super susceptible as a wide 9. TJ always rushes as a wide 9. You're just getting chipped. You can align.
Explain for our listeners and viewers what a wide 9 is, because I know that, but a lot of people don't know that terminology.
I mean, that means you are, that far outside of the right tackle, where you're not on the outside hip of that right tackle. You're like 2 steps off of it, trying to get that speed rush around, right?
Right.
So when they line up, basically, sometimes lining up outside the tight end, even teams can come in, condense that formation, and can put a receiver there to impede his route. Sometimes they put the formation, chip him with a running back and a tight end. Sometimes there's 3 guys, like before he even gets to the tackle. It's pretty crazy how much he gets picked on just because he stays there stationary. And he only uses – here's the thing, Chris, that's so amazing about TJ Watt and his production. he really only wins with one move, two moves.
Yeah.
Speed rush and speed rip and dip, and it's a ghost move. He doesn't really do a lot of inside moves. He doesn't do a lot of power rushes. That's something he's going to have to do more and more. I think that's part of what TJ can do. So when you're asking what he can do, I think TJ, start getting the inside counters because these guys overset on you. Start going at them with power because they're sitting on the speed rush coming to their chest. He's strong as an ox. I know he can do it. So that's something I would like to see TJ do. But the Steelers schematically move him around. You talk about flipping sides. I'd like to see him over the A gap, the B gap. Have him in that spinner role. We see that a lot nowadays with guys like Micah Parsons and Myles Garrett and others lining up over the interior of the line because TJ is just too quick and explosive for these centers and guards. So that's something I think that's important. And the other thing is, as you mentioned, overload blitzes. I think Jalen Ramsey can factor into that. Deshaun Elliott. I'd like to see them use Patrick Queen more as a blitzer because I think they didn't lean into that part of his game enough last year. He's such a good blitzer. So I'd like to see that. And here's a basic thing that they just didn't do enough of, Chris. How about we just stunt these guys a little bit more? Like, just have a TJ crash inside a little more. They didn't even stunt much last year. And so they were so static. It was like a rush 4, spot drop, cover 3, cover 1 type defense. And it was so vanilla that teams were just able to line up and kind of tee off on TJ before he could even touch a tackle. Like, that's literally what happened last year.
I loved that you brought up Keith Butler because it's more evidence to something that I've been saying for some time when it comes to the flipping defensive coordinators from Keith Butler to Terrell Austin. The last 5 years of Keith Butler, the Steelers led the NFL in sacks every single year, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021. The first year without him, and every year since 2022, 2023, 2024, 3 years of Terrell Austin, they have not led the NFL in sacks. And in fact, they haven't even been in the upper crust of NFL sack producers. And that doesn't mean that the Steelers pass rush hasn't been active, but it's been part of what Keith Butler did. And that's a very big stylistic difference was he got his guys more one-on-ones. Terrell Austin is more tailored to helping in coverage, which again, like the Steelers defense has been top 10 every single year that Terrell Austin has coached. He has been a good defensive coordinator for them. Has he been great? No, but I think greatness for Steelers fans is also different because you had Dick LeBeau for so long, and Dick LeBeau coached several number 1 defenses. And Keith Butler and Terrell Austin are so different. And so when someone tells me, the defensive coordinator is just a placeholder job, they don't really do anything, that's just Mike Tomlin's job, I say, go look at how stylistically different the Steelers defenses were with Keith Butler versus the Steelers defenses have been with Terrell Austin, and you'll see something there. And I think that's the biggest challenge is, look, I think they have the complexities and parts in their coverage game that get their guys chances to create turnovers. I think that part is very much in their game because that's the thing that Keith Butler didn't do a whole lot of in his game. But where they need to ramp things up is getting more of those mix-ups to create pressure mismatches and to get your one-on-ones up front. And that's where guys like Denzel Martin and Carl Dunbar are going to be their primary responsibilities, I think, this year is, 1, stuffing the run and being better at that, but 2, but when you get into those passing downs, have the combinations, the blitz packages, the different setups to get offensive linemen confused and to be guessing, and then get those one-on-ones where now all of a sudden TJ Watt's just going up against the tackle, Alex Highsmith just going up against the tackle, or if they are doubled, Cam Hayward and everyone else inside is having a nicer day because they don't have as much traffic there. That is the stylistic differences, and that is where I think things can be better for the Steelers if they work on that aspect of the game.
I also want to make this point. 2022, you mentioned they aren't in the upper crust for sacks, but they're 4th in pressure rate.
Exactly.
Last 2 years, they've fallen. Well, who was on the staff in 2022?
Brian Flores.
Brian Flores.
Yep.
I like that kind of ability to offset TA's weaknesses. And I don't think TA is some wizard at kind of dialing up these front blitzes.
No, he's not.
And he's definitely more secondary based. Here's the interesting thing. The best defenses the Steelers have had really over the last 10 years or so were when Keith Butler and Terrell Austin were both on the staff together. I thought that was interesting. So Keith Butler always had the trouble with coverages, right? Linebacker on a wide receiver, all these things. You remember this? And so TA was able to cover up those weaknesses, and they really worked together in synergy with one another. Then when Keith Butler left, the blitzes fell until Terrell Austin had Brian Flores, and Flores added spice. And then that Flores went to Minnesota. It's all gone away, and the blitzes just haven't been there. And Mike T's background is in the secondary as well. It's not in the front four, so front seven, which is another thing. I wish they would add a senior defensive assistant that is front seven focused that could help with your blitz package. I think that would be a very smart thing for them to do. Obviously, they haven't done that yet, but it's something to look at. They need to get in their blitz package bag, because they have really good blitzers. I mean, Patrick Queen's a great blitzer. Jalen Ramsey is proven to be a capable blitzer. So is Deshaun Elliott. They have guys, that are going to play in the box, that are going to be significantly good blitzers, that can be chaos disruptors and chaos agents in the backfield. So I'd like to see them get a little more snazzy with their looks, because last year was just so vanilla.
No, I agree. And I mean, to your point, and again, great observation on your part. You pointed out, when they were together, that's when they were at their best. The last two times the Steelers have had a top 5 defense in both yards and points allowed. 2019, 2020, Keith Butler was your defensive coordinator. Terrell Austin was your secondaries coach, and 2019 was his first year with the team. And sure, that didn't go as well in 2021. They kind of fell off a little bit there, but I think that again, that success there kind of shows where they are different. So again, when someone tells you that, it's just Mike Tomlin's defense, no one has a real role in anything there, those guys are just placeholders. Look at that person and know they don't know the first thing that they're talking about, because there have been very big differences with his defensive assistants and how they've coached the Steelers to play. We're going to take another quick break here. When we come back, we're going to get a more theoretical, fun summer questions. And it's still that dead zone before training camp. We'll have one of those questions here next on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, Nick Farabaugh, stick with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. We've got Nick Farabaugh from Penn Live on. This next question is going to be more fun one, laid back, not necessarily hard analytical data or anything, but it's a fun one coming from Parker from Indianapolis. Parker, take it away.
Hey, Chris, this is Parker from Indianapolis. I asked you this question last year, and I'd be curious to see your thoughts on what your thoughts would be for this year after such a changeover in roster. But if you could add one offensive piece outside of quarterback and one defensive piece to the Steelers for this year and the coming years, what would it be? I think I would want to add Penei Sewell as a just surefire tackle. I know we have a couple of young tackles that we're hoping for, but it'd be great to have a piece on the offensive line that is potentially the best tackle in the league. And my defensive pick would be Aiden Hutchinson, where he can play some versatile on the line for right now and eventually take over for TJ Watt in the future. Thank you, and I was just curious what your thoughts would be.
Parker, thank you for your question. As always, you can call in at 412-223-6644. Leave your name, where you're from. Keep your question under a minute. Nick, Penei Sewell, that's a bad man right there. That guy, he might be the best tackle. I think he is the best tackle in football. You could say maybe Trent Williams still got it. You could, talk about some of those dudes with the Chargers. But I love me some Penei Sewell. And it would certainly answer the tackle question. You kind of just tell, hey, Broderick, sorry, man, got the best tackle in the league. We'll figure that out. I went with two players here on my end. Then I want to get your thoughts on who you would pick. On offense, I went with an obvious name that everyone's been pointing at, Terry McLaurin. I think he'd be a heck of a mix with, and technically I could say Justin Jefferson, right? Like if we're just going for that. I was talking about more reasonably available player there. Terry McLaurin would be a heck of a route runner. You compare him with DK Metcalf, and do really well there. If I had to pick the ultimate receiver, of course, it'd be like Justin Jefferson or something like that. But then on defense, I thought not going edge rusher, going to the position that you just lost and not necessarily bringing back Minkah Fitzpatrick. How about Antoine Winfield at free safety out of the Buccaneers? I've always liked his game. I liked him in Minnesota coming out of college. And I think he's a guy, he's a few years younger than Minkah, not by a whole lot, but he could be kind of in his prime, helping you at free safety, and so that you wouldn't lose a step there at all. But yeah, I went McLaurin and Winfield. Where would you go if you were to do this?
All right, let me go full unrealistic brain here.
All right, let's do that first. Let's
do that first. All right. Jetta's makes a lot of sense. Jamar Chase, I think, is a very good one. But I'll tell you what, I don't think that Penn Isol's the best tackle in football.
Ooh, who is?
Tristan Wirfs.
Oh no, you're right. I do like me some Tristan.
I mean,
I'm tripping.
I
No, but Penny's up there. But I think it's really close.
1-2, right?
Yeah.
Trent Williams is still up there, but he's older.
Yeah.
But Tristan Wirfs, like this guy flips sides and is still an elite tackle. I mean,
yeah.
I don't care. I'll take Tristan Wirfs. Okay, that's what I'll take. Give me Tristan Wirfs. If you're asking me like realistic, guys that are like in contract disputes, I think McLaurin. I don't even think McLaurin's really realistic, actually. But if we're like,
I agree,
a glimmer of shining hope, 50 million miles away, McLaurin makes some sense. I almost went Max Kellerman there. The death beam pointed straight at Earth.
That's one of my.
I want McLaurin.
I want McLaurin. It's gonna save us from the aliens.
Yeah.
All right. So, but McLaurin, we're on the same page there. All right. Who would be your defensive player pick? Unrealistic and then realistic.
It's interesting. I thought about two names when I was thinking of kind of unrealistic. Three names really. Jesse Bates was one that I love. Jesse Bates' game at safety.
Yeah.
If I were to go corner, I think obviously I'd go Pat Surtain.
Yeah.
Or I might go Trent McDuffie, someone like that. I think those names
Trent.
fit well. But the obvious name to me, if I was going unrealistic, were two interior defensive linemen. And one is Dexter Lawrence, who is just an absolute
monster,
stud.
Yeah.
And the other one is Jalen Carter. Like those two.
Jalen Carter with this defense. Forget run defense is solved. It's fine.
Right. And so, Winfield to me is also a pipe dream. So I don't think there's a lot of like realistic defensive players out there. I mean, I don't know. If we did this 3 weeks ago, would everyone have been saying Jalen Ramsey? Like, honestly, would they have been? There's not one that's realistic right now that pops into my mind that says, oh, that's maybe realistic. Maybe, maybe in the future, because this guy's had some injuries and he's 30 now, though. I mean, Vita Vea came to mind, but he's getting older.
He is getting older.
There's not an obvious one. So if I'll stick with like my unrealistic expectations and try and make it semi-realistic, I guess, in some respect. I'd probably end up with Dexter Lawrence.
I can see that. Getting just helping in the position that you've been the weakest in would certainly be a factor there. Looking at other big names that are out there, guys that are up for being free agents next season. Joey Bosa would be in that conversation. It's like you said, there's not a whole lot of guys that like realistically you could look at and say, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense to just go out and snatch him from the team. They don't need him right now. A lot of these guys are tied up in contracts that they like and that work for their team. And so I'm with you. Like, I don't think there's a lot of realistic defensive targets. Like, this is the part of the season, right? Teams have gotten their rosters together. The Steelers have gotten their, like, there's not a whole lot of guys that are just like obvious targets for teams, because if they were, they've been gotten by now, or someone's traded for them, or something hasn't come to the head where they have to force themselves into a tough spot. So, but I'm with you on that. I liked Winfield just because I've always loved his style of play. And I thought he'd be a good there. I love Jesse Bates too. I thought, when he was with the Bengals, when the Bengals lost him, I was like, that's such a huge loss, and they've certainly felt that. So yeah. But all that to say, this is always like a fun one. Parker did this last year too. Shout out to him for thinking of this question. But it's also a fun exercise to like look around the league and say, hey, who are the best players that you could add to a roster. And again, I'm always glad he throws out the non-quarterback part, because otherwise everyone's just, well, just get Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen and you're good to go. And that's a lame answer. But Penei Sewell, Tristan Wirfs, good picks on offense. Terry McLaurin, but wide receivers tough, man. Like there's players out there, there's names, but it's like, do you really want to gun after some of these guys like Cortland Sutton? They'll be 31 at that point. When it comes to that position. So lots of big questions on that. But again, the big thing I will say is that the things that seem unrealistic right now, if you want to see something come to fruition, wait for training camp, wait for beefs to get a little bit louder. I mean, heck, maybe the Steelers are in one with TJ Watt still by then, where if he hasn't signed a contract, and then you see the team start to get a little friskier and want to leap a little bit quicker, and then they want to get something done before the start of the regular season, that's often when you can catch a team and find a great steal of a move, like when the Steelers were able to sign Joe Hayden after the Browns cut him back in 2019.
Yeah, I mean, that's
2017.
You got to watch that. You got to watch the cut down deadlines, man. I mean, who knows? Maybe a Romeo Doubs or a Dontavian Wicks is on the trade block with Green Bay. I think that would be best possible scenario for them at wide receiver, for example. Something like that. Maybe there's a safety. I mean, that position is so plentiful in some respect that you could look there. Oh, I'll also think of one more name. The Steelers don't really need an inside linebacker right now, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention how fun Fred Warner is in any defense ever.
Oh man, that guy is a beast. Yeah,
he's unbelievable. He's one of the best coverage linebackers I've ever seen. I mean, he truly is an all-time great coverage linebacker. You know, he's if he's not in the same tier, he's right below the Kuechly, Ray Lewis type tier there, because that he is so good as a coverage linebacker. So he's a mention as well, but. If we're being realistic, about guys that maybe the Steelers could end up with, Romeo Doubs, Dontavian Wicks, John Mechie maybe could be a name you watch. There's guys there at wide receiver. Could a safety come loose somewhere? So those are the two positions to watch for me. Oh, also offensive line depth. That's going to be something to look for. Those are the three positions I've highlighted. They could use tackle depth, interior depth, and they could use safety and wide receiver. So I'd be watching the cut down deadlines with all those positions.
Absolutely. He's Nick Farabaugh. Nick, thanks so much for joining us here from Penn Live. Appreciate you always being on the show. Let people know where they can find you, follow you, and get more of your work.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter, Faribaugh FB, Blue Sky Nick Faribaugh. Make sure to check out the Steelers stuff, PennLive.com/Steelers, and check out the YouTube channel, Steelers Blitz on Penn Live.
Absolutely. He's Nick Farabaugh. I'm Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, all the social medias. It's the same handle every time at Carter Critiques. You can read my work in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette by going to post-gazette.com. Find me here on the Locked On Steelers podcast every day, Monday through Friday, breaking down the Pittsburgh Steelers. Back here tomorrow with another episode of the Locked On Steelers podcast.